てく顔のない視線胸の穴が変えてた日常
This time we're going to be diving into the addled and confused minds of our current Prime Minister, Mr. Alexander Boris Johnson, to give it this proper title.
Get ready for a 10-parter.
Yeah.
Get ready for a 10-parter. Get ready for a 10-parter.
Twang! The monarch's first serve sails past his ear, comfortably out on all directions. Bien joué, sire, cries Sir Charles, but the king is having none of it. Good shot, my liege, exclaims the courtier, but no amount of flattery will coax Henry's ball into the service court, trying to coax Henry's balls. Flattery, my boy.
We'll get you everywhere.
We'll get you everywhere.
Hey Malkovich, think fast! Fuck!
The king is beginning to go red. A certain jowly savagery is creeping over his features. Aye, faith! He cries, snapping his racket over his vast knee, and commands Sir Charles to serve. Palms wet, the courtier tosses up the little leather sphere, and it plops over the net in a slow, undulating dolly. The king makes the most of it. For a fraction of a second, the ball is sucked back into the web of the racket, as the enormous physical force turns the strings into a kind of warped model of the space-time continuum, and then, kapoing, it breezes off and away, far over the head of the extravagantly cowering Sir Charles, up over the hammer beams, and then bonk, 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 it bounces into some cranny known only to the architects. As for the ball, it lies alone, unseen and untouched, wedged on the upside of one of the beams in a little dark coin for almost half a millennium. Empires wax and wane around it. So in principle, the ball might stay there forever, lost in mid-rally, frozen in a perpetual present tense all of its own, except that it is now only inches away from Jason Pickle's scrambling foot and about to rejoin the narrative of history. Just stacks it straight off.
It lands on his fucking head. Done.
He could make his way back up to the gun, he reckoned. It would mean crawling upwards and backwards, hanging on like Spider-Man. It would need amazing prehensile strength in his hands, but Jason had confidence in his physical strength, and he needed that rifle. Mind you, if he fell, it would be almost 85 feet, and he felt a twinge for whomsoever he might land upon. We might have left the flashback to the 1500s, but
yeah, we
the
might have, but Boris hasn't.
Exactly.
Chapter 46, 10:44 hours. My love, Cameron had decided to try tact, and she turned to Adam with what she hoped was a tender look. When we went to NATO, Cameron hated to ask him this. She couldn't bear to destroy him in her own eyes, as, in one way or another, she had destroyed all her previous boyfriends. But details, recollections, oddities were now crowding in upon her memory, and innocent acts of the loved one now seemed pregnant with suspiciousness. You know when we went inside the main building to see Brady Cunningham? Of course, Brady Cunningham. Did you know he was a friend of my father's? Yes, of course I did. You told me he was. I mean, before we went to NATO, before all the trouble, did you know we might meet him? What do you mean? I don't know, she said miserably. I don't know what I mean. Oh, fuck me. What happened was this. As the reader will know by now, Cameron had mixed feelings about this.
As the reader?
As the reader will know by now. As the reader will know by now.
So, I mean, if there was any doubt that these sections are literally just Boris speaking to us, and yet he still occasionally adds accents to his own voice in the book.
When they arrived at NATO HQ, they found themselves outside the perimeter fortifications of a building that looked like, and indeed had been constructed as, a suburban maternity hospital.
You know, that look. That classic look.
The mob was a smaller, more dedicated version of the one outside Westminster Hall today, with a higher proportion of nose rings and Socialist Worker Party badges and Yasser Arafat headscarves and more angry brown faces. But when the Dirty Don accidentally dropped a half-empty champagne bottle from which they had all been swigging, a group of 3 riot cops converged. Their leader was a burly Fleming with a scraggly black beard over his pockmarked cheeks. His hairy hand crawled over the shiny leather holster at his hip. I love how all foreigners in this have hairy hands.
They're all these grotesque creatures. Yeah.
Scraggly beard,
pockmarked
face. Cameron remembered the great tact with which Adam had handled the square-headed Costner clones of the American military. Said it again!
Costner again! There's another loop.
Yeah, he's just running on fumes by this point, isn't he? In the new Scotland Yard ops room, they had given up trying to raise pickle on his ring.
I'm here to kick ass and raise pickle.
And I'm all out of pickle. And I'm all out of arse. Okay, said Blewett, here's what we do. Give me a shot of the roof. You mean a picture? You want a picture of the hall? Oh, fuck off. What? Shot? I don't know what that means.
Me fucking idiot.
Ricasoli, said Blewett, dialing him up. I want you to get someone on that roof and give some stuff to Lieutenant Pickle. Give Pickle the stuff. I'm only asking this because I feel obliged to ask, said Deputy Assistant Commissioner Pennell. But are you sure Pickle is the right man? You know we've got a very good shot, Indira Natu, who could be deployed very quickly. Pickle.
Wait, sorry, what?
Indira Natu,
Can I?
N-A-T-U.
Oh, please.
She had a different name before, didn't she?
Yeah, she was Indira Nath.
That's a paddling. Oh, you better believe that's a paddling.
I managed to actually flick right back to Pickle sat on the roof. Yep. Are you alright, Jason? Asked Sergeant Indira Nath. You know, we've got a very good shot. Indira Natu could be deployed very quickly. At this point, I'm out of any generosity, and I'm assuming he just literally forgot virtually everything, and he's now just putting any old shit in, including the shit he's already fucking put in. Anyway, sorry.
That's right.
Please continue.
The guy's a phenomenon. He may be a freak, but when you want a rhino dart in that man's neck, Pickle's the boy to put it there for you. Of course, they do say he's a bit funny sometimes, after what happened in Baghdad. I was going to mention that. In fact, the word was passed along from SO19 that he'd been acting up a bit on the roof. Someone reported on Pickle? Yes, that's it, the police sniper I mentioned. Of course, I should have asked you whether it was right to give orders to detain him. Blewett glared, secretly delighted that his opposite number had committed such a faux pas. Was it time for Blewett to blow it, he wondered?
Fucking what? We've been making that joke the whole time, and the one time he finally made
it
makes fucking no sense whatsoever.
Just reassure me about one thing. This dart, you're sure it's going to knock him out in time? Oh yes, said the bright young officer who had thought up the idea. It's thiopentene sodium. It takes 3 seconds to put a rhino to sleep. Chapter 47, 10:49 hours. And do you know how they make a cocktail sausage?
Oh good. I'm glad we're getting to the point.
Haroon walked with deliberate tread down the aisle, 3 paces per slab. He approached Habib, and their eyes met. Each knew what the other was thinking.
They could see it in each other's trousers.
Why were they listening to this disgusting infidel chef and his preposterous recipes for unclean food? The sooner they consummated their operation, the better.
Told ya.
Haroon discovered another reason why he was starting to feel uncomfortable. His bladder was still full after a night in the ambulance, and the coffee he had drunk in the Tivoli was now bursting to be liberated from his body. What the fuck is this, man? Like, that's a plot point.
He's gonna piss himself.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for this story arc to work itself out.
Cameron sieved her memory but couldn't think of how Adam had done what she now suspected. She had to find the courage to ask him. Adam, she said, still holding him by the hand, did you take anything from Brady Cunningham's office? Adam shut his eyes, feeling a weight of despair at his own folly. This feels real dumb, but I found something. You found something? He was frowning again. Where did you find something? Well, I'm ashamed to say this, but I have to get it off my chest. I found it in your bag. Adam...
This is positively scandalous.
You beastly woman.
Freddy, slap this girl. Get her away from me.
You mean in the hotel? What were you doing looking in my bag? It must have been 2 in the morning. Oh, another flashback. Great. It must have been 2 in the morning. Cameron was lying awake in a state of post-coital rapture. There was no noise save the odd police siren, the bray of some last stag-night reveller, and the resistless metronomic breathing of the man she now thought she loved. And as she studied him, she started to feel a crushing sense of anxiety. And in her paranoia, she remembered something earlier. Adam had been doing something with his bag when she came out of the shower. She knew exactly what she looked like as she came back into his presence. She had dried herself and was wearing only a short silk thing with straps. Boris, I know that's what you call it, but that's probably not what she would call it, is it? Oh, God. The idea of Boris Johnson having any kind of sexuality is fucking repulsive. She was looking. This may sound crude. Oh, no, I'm sure it won't, Boris. I'm sure it won't.
When have you ever sounded crude, Boris?
This may sound crude, but it is no less than the truth. Like a lingerie model, only cleverer, and, if anything, with bigger breasts. Well, you were right, Boris, it did sound crude. Well done. Now, in the small hours, she remembered that just before then he had started shoving something he was reading into his bag and zipped it up. She brooded on this detail. There had definitely been a touch of furtiveness in his manner. Oh boy, she breathed to herself in the dark as the obvious answer struck her. He was married. He not only had a wife in submission, he had a brace of kids. Does that remind you of anyone? She had caught him reading their school reports with a grim and mounting certainty. Like, who the fuck would think that? Who the fuck? Oh my god, he must have been reading his children's school reports.
He must have brought them with him.
Kids, get back in the fucking bag! Perhaps his admiration for Islam had encouraged him to enlist a small assortment of wives. She held up a cardboard folder in the tangerine light from the street. US military restricted, it said at the top, and it gave that year's date. With a ludicrous sense of jubilation, she put it back and slipped into bed. It was just some boring address book, she thought. The anomalies had popped up only now, as a corpse will surface only some time after a drowning, and she wanted an explanation.
Boris, I want an explanation.
I want a fucking drowning. It takes huge upper body strength to climb upwards and backwards on the inside of a roof with nowhere for your hands and feet to go but the joists. But Pickle was remarkably strong. His hands were like those of a farmer or manual labourer, pumped up by squeezing squash balls to double normal human size. As soon as he had whacked the guy who was holding the president, thought Pickle, he might quietly drill a couple of holes in that hinky chef dude. He didn't know what was wrong with the world. A bunch of towel-head sickos threatening to kill the President of the USA, and some limey stands up and makes a speech attacking hamburgers.
He really, really loves to use that word. Any excuse. Any fucking excuse. Oh no! It's not me saying it.
With a grunting convulsion, Pickle managed to regain control. He jammed his toe into the corner, just to wedge himself like a human piton. His toe cap connected with the ancient tennis ball. After almost 500 years of seclusion, the ball rolled 6 inches off the beam and began the long drop back into play.
Chapter 48, 10:52 hours. The President was among the first to see it. One of the advantages of having your eyes close set together, like Bjorn Borg, the tennis champion, is you can focus on balls a long way away.
That is surely an advantage.
Haroon didn't see it. He couldn't really concentrate on anything much at the moment, except the build-up of molten lava in his lower abdomen. He was damned if he was going to urinate in front of all these shameless foreign women, like some incontinent child. It would be haram. A disgrace.
It's one of the pillars of Islam, isn't it? Don't piss yourself in a room full of people.
Yeah. And so he was staring at the wall to avoid their eyes and hoping to distract himself from the urging of his medulla oblongata. Barlow did see it, because he happened to be staring up again, praying that a thunderbolt would descend and destroy Chester de Peveril, leaving nothing but a pile of ash smoking in his Timberland loafers. He saw the thing grow bigger in the 2.1 seconds it took to fall, and though he flinched, he knew with a sudden unarticulated joy, because he had a good eye for a ball, that there was a reasonable chance it would fall on the head of the prating Pratt beside him, which it did.
No, Kimmy!
Ponk went the ball on the head of the TV chef. De Peveril bellowed. "What was that?" shouted Jones as the Arab gunman and woman whipped round and the ball rolled under the chairs. Jones thought it important to assert his command of the situation. "Die, infidel son of a whore," he said, and loosed off a round from his Browning in the general direction of Pickle. The American sniper was gone. With a single fluid lunge, he had travelled up and back, wrenching his trapezius muscles, and successfully gaining the hatch that led back to the flèche. The combination of the gunshot and the little leather bomblet had frazzled the president's nerves. Fucking bomblet!
For fuck's sake!
Eat my entire arse, said Jones, as the tennis ball was recovered from under the chair of a hostage. You gonna pick that up? Fucking disgusting. Get a state of you.
I'm sorry. It was two crisps stuck together, and when I bit into it, they all kind of just fell apart, and now I'm just covered in crisp, and my dignity is fucking long gone. In a shower of crisp bomblets.
"Come on," he yelled at the president, picking up his gun and yanking on the handcuffs. It was time to activate Plan B. "Dean, follow me," he ordered, and gave instructions to Haroun Habib and the rest of the Arabs to keep charge of the crowd. Dragging the president in his wake, waving the automatic, he marched down the aisle. To Cameron's horror, he was staring at her as he advanced. She stared back, entranced by those wobbly brown irises in those bloodshot eyes.
Oh god, she's gonna fall in love with him.
Yeah, he's my dad now.
Oh god.
Jones the dad. "Professor Swallow," he shouted, and Cameron found herself feeling no longer sick, but kind of spacey, detached in a personal bubble of horror. "Oh my gosh," she thought. "It's true, it's all true, and it's all a goddamn lie." Adam said something to Jones the bomb in Arabic. He said, "You'll pay for this, you moron." But Cameron didn't know Arabic, and looked at him with wild suspicion. "Come on, my love," he said. "We've got to go with them or they'll kill us." No, I mean, I don't know, he said Professor Swallow, he didn't say anything about her coming. Come on now, you've got to go.
He said you have to come too.
And he said you have to stand in front of me. On the left of Westminster Hall, as you face it from the north door, there is a curious stone balustrade. This is of vital importance, this information. The banisters are decorated by carved stone heraldic beasts, chip-eared lions and crack-horned unicorn, and a stag missing part of his antler. Underneath are steps leading to a set of swing doors, which give access to a series of small meeting rooms called W1, W2, W3, W4, W5 and W6, where MPs encounter their constituents. Here Jones hastened, having decided that room W6 was the most easily defended. The President, Cameron and Adam as hostages, and Dean, his skin now having an eerie Venusian tinge ringing up the rear. He was on the point of descending the steps when a voice from the crowd objected. It was Chester de Peverell. "Hang on," he said. "What about my speech? Do you want me to carry on?"
This is fucking miserable.
Yep. Chapter 49, 10:53 hours. Despite his instructions, it was not clear which of the Arabs Jones had left in charge of the debate. Habib and Haroun disapproved, and in any case, Haroun was now afflicted by a Chernobyl in his pants.
Oh, fuck. That's,
Interesting imagery.
What does the decimeter say? 3.6 Rontgen, but that's as high as the meter.
3.6. Not great, not terrible. I apologise.
He was starting to jig up and down, as children do. Nothing could mask the incontrovertible and overwhelming pressure on his urethra. Several people in the audience noticed his demeanour. "I don't like the look of that one," they thought. "Chaps on crack cocaine." So it was left to Benedict. She marched to the vacant lectern and yelped into the mic. "Come on, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames, messieurs, who wants to be next? It's Benedict's time to shine." Not far from the ambassador, on the other side of the aisle, a lady had risen. Her age was unclear, but she was certainly no younger than 70. She was a peer of the realm, a former Home Office minister, and grandmother of 20 children. She was Elspeth, Baroness Hovell, the scourge of the gay lobby.
Oh, Fuck her. I was just going Elspeth. Is she from fucking King Alfred's time? Was she there when England was unified as one nation?
The abominator of abortion. The defender of corporal punishment.
Yeah, a cunt, we get it.
Yeah.
She's a fucking cunt.
And the only politician of any party to have the guts to question whether it was the business of the Treasury to use endless fiscal incentives to drive women out to work.
It's not guts, it's cunty. They always put it that way, don't they? They've got the guts to be the most hyper-conservative thing imaginable. It's like, that's not guts, that's fucking stupidity.
Yeah, it's not guts, it's being an arsehole. Like quite a few of us in this room, I am old enough to remember the war. And I must say that this is not how we won it. We are being held to ransom by a bunch of terrorist louts, and we sit here and do nothing about it. Oh Lord, thought Roger Barlow, the old bat's going to get herself killed.
I fucking hope so.
Here's hoping.
I'm having a drink to that. Here's to Elsbeth getting fucking capped.
There were quite a few who seemed to agree. A neighbour tugged at her sleeve. Sit down, Elspeth. Another.
Fuck's sake, Elsbeth.
Shut the fuck up, Elspeth. On the roof, Jason Pickle was being given a swift and sketchy tutorial in the use of a rhino tranquilizer gun. But the president's left the room, and the freaking mother's gone with him. What am I supposed to do and all? Ricasoli was hanging onto a rope ladder, which was hanging from the Black Hawk. Above them, the skies were gravid with monsoon. And the whole thing was like a bad scene from America's Indo-Chinese nightmare.
It is like a bad scene. This whole thing is like a bad scene from a terrible book written by a fucking cunt.
You're the man, Pickle, said the quivering captain. You're the best damn shot in the whole goddamn army.
Damn it, John!
Watch this, said Pickle. And before Ricasoli could object, he picked out a leprous Victorian griffin, crouched on the roof 150 feet away. He pulled the trigger and the griffin's head exploded. Clean through the eye, said Pickle, disappearing again through the hatch. Freaking Brits could pay for it.
Okay.
And I speak up, continued the moralising peeress. I think it pretty disgraceful when our country is after all playing host to the President of the United States that anyone should stand up and say anything which could be construed as supportive of those who are preparing to murder him. And indeed us. What else are you going to say? I mean, you can't lie, can you? All right, lady, said Benedict. She admired Lady Hovel's gumption, but it was time to show who was boss.
Fucking shoot her.
Yeah, no questions, Benedict. You give these cunts an inch and they'll take a mile.
Yeah, Benedict fucking Kappa, like, centre mass, and then a couple to the fucking dome,
Yeah, and then a few of the others as well.
Yeah, just for good measure.
Lady, be quiet now, or else some bad thing is going to happen right away.
Well put.
At the very top of the hall, behind their railing, the inspissated holders of Britain's ancient courtly offices were beginning to stir. There was something in the Agincourt spirit of old Iron
Oh, fuck right off.
Not quite.
What happened to the aristocrats at Agincourt, Boris? Come on, even you know this.
Chapter 50, 10:58 hours. The news from the voting was still bad for America. Some countries, such as Saudi Arabia, were reporting almost 100% insistence that the prisoners be sent home, but there were odd pockets of support for the president. He might have thought that Russia, after her humiliation in the Cold War, would take the chance to put her boot on the neck of the old adversary. But no, the Russians had their problems in Chechnya. They took a dim view of Islamic terror. Maybe there was some kind of fiddling of the figures by the oligarchs who ran the TV stations, brackets, and who were mainly, as some lost no time in pointing out, of Jewish origin, closed brackets.
Oh!
How original. Daring today, aren't we?
With elaborate editorial throat clearing and issuing of health warnings, they did the work of Jones the Bomb. They broadcast the news that of people calling TV channels, 58% now believed that the American president should release the Guantanamo prisoners. Jones was almost incontinent with pleasure.
Is that what happens when Boris Johnson feels pleasure?
Yeah, he just pisses endlessly into the wind. He captionated like a gibbon as the figure was flashed on the screen. You see? You see? He cried, doing a little dance, which the poor president was obliged to echo. They were standing in room W6 watching the television. It was a small, poky, windowless room with a nondescript conference table and the chairs and carpets in parliamentary green. It's like the T-Rex roar. Jurassic Park. So go on then, gibbered Jones, thrusting his face close to the president. You have seen the verdict of the world. The majority is clear. Well, buddy, he said, I think we should wait and see. You say the verdict is clear, but I noticed that the numbers have been changing a little. Coward, yapped Jones. You do not even have the courage to do what the world wants you to do. Silence for a second. The noise of the helicopter. Another crash. Then a mysterious vibration, as though the whole building was starting to shiver and purr like an ancient cat in its sleep. You know, those really old cats that just sleep all day. I guess, yeah, to be fair. Give the order and you will go free. But if you fail to accept the verdict of the people, then it will be my pleasure and honour to kill you, even if I lose my own life. Mr. Jones, sir, it was Dean, putting his hand up to speak. Mr. Jones, I think we've done enough now. Can we stop? Dean, he said in his softest and most murderous tones. Shut up! I've been thinking. And I agree with Yao, Mr. Jones,
I was
sir.
just waiting for that.
I agree with Yao about everything, but I'm not sure that I, really want to die. Assuredly, Dean, if we die, angels will accompany us to our rest, and we will live in the tabernacle of the blessed, where no rain falls, neither is there any snow, and the warm breezes play. Dean shouted, I don't care. Anyway, I like snow. For the first time that day, Jones the bomb looked taken aback. He glared. Dean bit his lower lip. Ever since the cremation of the neighbouring cheese laboratory, he had felt a fugitive, but never had he felt so lost in a jungle of fear, and now the great white hunters were coming for him, and he was among the rabid beasts they must put down. Cameron stood up and moved towards him. Listen, mister, said Cameron, I think he made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to be a suicide bomber. So you just back right up, okay, Buster?
So you just ballywell the sod off.
Adam, snapped Jones at Dr. Swallow, who stared levelly back. She is your responsibility. Kindly take charge of her. No one takes responsibility for me, said Cameron. Not even me! I don't know the meaning of the word responsibility. Hold your tongues, the lot of you. He shoved his automatic into the president's temple so hard that he winced. Well, said Cameron to Adam, aren't you going to say anything? There's nothing I can say, he told the girl he loved. I've been a fool and I've been cheated. Cameron, I'm sorry.
Oh, God. Fucking hell, we're getting there, aren't we?
Not fucking quick enough.
Chapter 51, 11:03 hours. There was something amiss with Haroon, thought Benedict. It was all the piss streaming down his leg. He walked towards her with tiny steps, as though trying to keep a walnut between his knees. This is classic stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely hilarious.
Oh, British comedy, eh? Quickly, he said. What is these quickly? She whispered.
What?
It is time to blast these sons of goats and monkeys.
Fair.
Yeah, it is, yeah. If we wait any more, something will happen. What is something? Man, I don't like the way Benedict is getting played here. Like, they're doing her dirty, man. Boris is doing her dirty.
He had to, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's had to nerf her so that anyone could take her down. Because if she wasn't, then she clearly would just
kill all of these
all these
motherfuckers, yeah. The Palestinian girl looked closely at Haroon. Mais tu veux faire pipi, chérie? He jerked his chin. But go on then, she chuckled, waving the muzzle of the Uzi at the swing doors. We can manage, and if anybody laughs at me now, thought Haroon as he minced out, I will shoot them in the bladder. Tootle Pip, called Lady Hovel to his smouldering back. You clear off and take Ulrika Meinhof here while you're at it. Please shoot her. Please shoot her.
Instantly shoots her in the head.
The acting terrorist leader walked towards her down the aisle, noiseless in her Nike airs. I think I should warn you that you don't scare me, young lady. Then you are brave, but you are not smart. In fact, there is only one thing that really frightens me. I am frightened of the disapproval of God. Ferme ta gueule. How do you say it in English? Shut your fat gob.
Queen.
Yes, Benedict. What you need, if you ask my opinion, is a nice husband.
Can we just skip to the part where her fucking head gets turned to paint, please?
We skipped where the back of her skull meets the fucking wall. Benedict pulled the trigger. Yes! Yes! Please.
Fucking legendary Queen behaviour.
Even as far back as Barlow and de Peveril, the shots buffeted their for fuck's sake.
Eustachian tube.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, yeah. What's a Eustachian tube?
It's the tubes that connect your ear canal to your sinuses.
Oh, alright, okay, fair enough.
Learn something new every day. Who said this channel wasn't educational, eh?
Her eyes fell away from Benedict, and at once she looked like anyone's old grandma. No, I don't think she shot her. I think she just fired into the air or something. Was Lady Hovel's chin wobbling? Was that a crinkle on the jaw that had never trembled in 40 years of sneering from men who weren't fit to lick her boots? It was hard to tell, but as Silverstick gazed at her from afar, tears formed in his ducts of love and fright. I was almost getting behind something that was happening.
Yeah, almost enjoying this.
Yeah.
For a second.
Adam was still saying nothing, and Cameron was looking at the TV. She had to know about his theft. So how did you take it? I'm afraid I just put my newspapers and stuff on top of it and then scooped it up when we all left. So what are you, a spy? He groaned. Yes, I suppose I am, but it's got nothing to do with this business. And who are you supposed to be spying for? Dean watched their conversation. In particular, he watched Cameron and noticed more detail. The tilt of her nose, the bangle on her wrist, the little white scar on her slender left arm. Jones the bomb spoke. The door is open, Dean, my young friend. But if you go through that door now, remember that you will lose all chance of bliss. He stared with his mongoose intensity. Mr. Jones, sir, I just don't believe in paradise. Jones made a sad face. Jones made a sad face.
Jones did a sad face emoji, then did a sad crying face emoji, and then a pensive face emoji.
But I hope you still have faith in me, Dean. Dean rose. He moved towards the door. Mr. Jones, No. Yes. No. That's it, thought Roger Barlow, when Benedict fired at the roof beams. Get me out of this thing, dear Lord, and I promise I'll be good. Here are all the good things I'm going to do. Fucking cunt. I'm going to pick up my towels from the bathroom floor. I'm going to start listening properly when she talks to me. I won't pick the corner of my toenails with a Bic biro lid. Ditto ears, or at least not at dinner parties. I won't open tins of tuna and then leave them under the bed.
Fucking new brain.
I don't need much to live on anymore. I just eat tuna out of the can and live in the car.
The noise from Benedict's gun carried out into New Palace Yard. It penetrated the ambulance and entered the ears of William Eric Kinloch Onyema. One lung was half full of blood.
Here he comes!
Eric Onyema was alive, and he owed his life to the Husky. It was the tough little computer which had served as his breastplate, and which had borne the brunt of Haroon's attack. He had lost about 4 pints of blood, and now he was coming out of his faint. He flapped an arm, and knocked a non-glass urine bottle to the floor. That wasn't quite as heroic as I was picturing it, but okay, I mean, he knocked some piss on the floor, you know. Chapter 52, 11:05 hours. Jesus H. Christ, said one of the SWAT team that surrounded the ambulance. There's someone moving in there. Oh, don't shoot, Eric.
It's gonna be Night of the Living Dead.
The SWAT team stared within, their expressions full of the semi-scared awe with which a man will look at the bottom of a woman's handbag. Struth, said one. It looks like a flaming abattoir in there. His lower body was covered in a long spinal board. His upper half was buried in a midden of oximeters, resuscitation masks, vomiting bags, gastric tubes, sterile surgical gloves, and defibrillators.
I think I could use a few of those right now.
I think there's someone there. Sweet Mary, Mother of God. Adam took Cameron's hand and led her away from the blare of the TV, as she felt those long, dark-haired pianist's fingers. Dark-haired fingers? Or dark-haired pianists? Could they not be a fair-haired pianist's fingers? I mean...
Yeah, is the hair on the fingers dark? The hair on the penis?
I'll tell you who I'm spying for, he said. Of course I will, but I want you to believe me about something. I am not a terrorist. Did you know they weren't a TV crew? Yes. Then you're mad. You're an active collaborator. Say, who is this fellow anyway? The president watched as the man with the flowing grey hair was at last given the floor. The president reached for the zapper to turn it up. Fucking zapper. Jones the bomb snatched the gizmo away.
A TV remote. They've been around since the 1950s, and he's like, oh, what are these newfangled televisual remote controlling devices? Fucking get the fuck over yourself, Boris.
That is His Excellency Yves Chapintier, Ambassador of the Republic of France. Know him, do you? Well, we're getting quite near the end.
Oh yeah, we're very close now.
Should we get some shot glasses on the go?
I think it's about time.
I think you'd all agree with us. We deserve some fucking shots.
We've more than fucking earned this.
So here's to the entire entire fucking government having COVID-19.
Fucked a lot of them.
Oh yes. Fuck them really, really hard.
Haroon's hasty footsteps echoed on the stone stairs. He was alone, save for the busts of dead white men and their scary dead white eyes. He tried one door, then another. The fool English. Did they expect a man to piss against the wall of their godless palaces?
Why doesn't he just
he
piss
at this
against the
point?
wall? I would, wouldn't you?
I have. Never.
Yeah, whenever I've been in the Houses of Parliament, I've just pissed
I
wherever.
make it my business to piss as often and in as many places as possible. He turned a corner and came face to face with a woman. She wore a helmet and her upper body was swaddled in Kevlar with a label saying Metropolitan Police. She swung her gun on him. He turned his on her. By mutual consent, they each slipped back around the corner and trotted in the opposite direction.
What?
Can someone please die soon? Can someone die? He came to a door of old rich oak and bossed with bronze. It said gents. Locked. Through his tears he read a notice sellotaped to the wood. Boy, thought the president, Eve here was one hell of a snappy dresser. The Frenchman was wearing an indigo suit of the most formal possible cut. The whole thing was set off by a taramasalata-coloured tie, strobing under the TV lights, and yes, giving the impression of a pulsing from the heart sincerity. We have to at some point.
Fuck it, let's just... Yeah. Oh my Christ.
Just fuck off, Boris. I'm gonna be so fucking glad when this book is fucking over. Fuck off.
Fuck you, Boris.
Since I believe that there is a strong possibility that this will be our last day on Earth, I will speak briefly, and I will speak from the heart. I stand before you as the representative of a friendly nation that bears nothing but amity and goodwill towards this country. For the avoidance of doubt, I wish to join... What was that about being brief? Fuck me, mate. When these events are investigated and the criminals punished, it will be discovered that some of our captors gained access to this hall through the invitation of myself and my former associate. He stuck his chin and bent it. All I will say now is that I have been the slave to Aphrodite, and that the goddess has ensorcelled my wits. Crikey, thought Barlow. Typical frog, said the president. Let me speak only to the nation which I have the honour of representing. Français, Française, concitoyens de la République. Yeah, no, you take your time, man. I've got all fucking day.
This is fucking bizarre. It's written so badly that it comes across as completely like boring and pedestrian, but it's such a bizarre scenario. They're being held hostage and they're like all on TV and like the people around the world are voting on whether or not to release prisoners from Guantanamo Bay, and people are all giving speeches. It's fucking so weird. It is so weird. This bit's great, and I'm really
This is
enjoying
really
it,
entertaining. This is great for a book.
It's just such a page turner, isn't
Yeah.
it? It is a page turner because every paragraph you see, you're like, yeah, fuck, I'm not
you're
reading
just
this. I'm not reading this.
desperate
Right, I'm
to
done.
turn the page.
I'm done.
It is surely right to call America, in some sense, an empire. But is she an evil empire?
Yes.
And that's that settled. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Of course she is evil, you conceited French stupidity. Jones the bomb leapt up, trailing the president, and almost rubbed noses with the TV screen. Chapter 54. 11-12 hours. So you expect me to believe that? Said Cameron to Adam. You thought they were going to wheel in some torture victim just to embarrass the president? I know it sounds crazy now, but it's all I've got to say. Now let's just concentrate on getting out of here alive.
No, I don't focus too hard on it.
Yeah, go on, live a little.
Yeah.
Maybe get shot once or twice. In the face, maybe. Over the scuffed green carpet of room W6, Dean slithered in his trainers. He turned and mouthed at Cameron, "Come with me." Cameron looked at him and then looked quietly back at Adam. Fuck off. Allahu Akbar. Dean, my fine young friend, I will not stand in your way. I will always remember you fondly. Thank you, sir. Right, do you remember my prediction?
Which one?
I'm hoping I'm going to be right. My prediction was that Dean would do basically what he's done now. Maybe there'll be a point where Dean's going to challenge him to try and stop him, and he'll be like, oh, well,
Oh, yeah, and he'll blow her beam up.
Her beam will blow up 10 miles away, something stupid like that. And Jones would gonna
Oh, yeah, and
get the
it'll be
phone,
all mixed up, and
he's-
he'll blow up.
He's going to blow up Haroon, who is now off looking for a
Oh,
toilet.
yeah. Yeah, I think almost 100% safe to say that's about to happen, isn't it?
I just want to pause for a moment to revel in my own predictive powers.
I think...
You know, Quasimodo predicted all this.
Who did what?
Your mother will be filled with joy over your heavenly wedding, said Jones. My mother, sir? What wedding? Jones smiled and slid his gun hand into the suicide jacket and checked the Nokia. Come on. Now Haroon was lost. Surely it was the same marble staircase, the one where he had met the policewoman. But if he had been here before, would he not have remembered that giant painting? It depicted the infidel Queen Elizabeth.
You know what? From now on, everyone should refer to the Queen as the infidel Queen Elizabeth.
Haroon spat and swore and tottered on. Why doesn't he just piss on the floor?
Yeah, why hasn't he just pissed on the floor?
Like, why hasn't he pissed already? He looked into the office of someone called the Right Honourable John Prescott MP.
Oh, wouldn't it be great if John Prescott come running out and banged him up?
Dives out of a cupboard and smashes his face in. Immediately beneath the tiles, Jason Pickle stared down at the sweating domes. He looked through the sights for the umpteenth time and lined up the crosshairs on two prominent objects. First, Benedict's left nipple and then her right nipple.
Boris, sort it the fuck out.
Especially when he's lining up to shoot her
Yeah.
dead.
Again, it's that
Sexual-
sex and death thing, isn't it? That...
all good horror is made of. Away at the back, Roger Barlow was partly hoping to speak, and partly hoping that he would be spared the ordeal. I fucking wish. It's too late for that, my friend. Not least since the Frenchman was being so colossally sound. Way to go, Froggy, he thought. Sure, why not?
Cunt.
All right, said Cameron. So whose spy are you? The Russians? The Chinese? Adam gave a rueful smile. He pointed to something on his lapel. See that? What is it? A microphone? No. It is a floret of the Grand Croix of the Légion d'honneur. So you are spying for the Froggies. So we just had this. They're like a finger's width apart on the page. C'est ça. Piège jamais. One last thing, Dean, said Jones as the teenager turned the handle of the door. I hope you will enjoy the attentions of the black-eyed ones, and remember that the black of their eyes is blacker than black, and the white of their eyes is whiter than white. And I hope that you will find them comely and submissive. Dean shivered. Same. Hey Dean, wait up, said the president. This black-eyed stuff, is that the black-eyed virgins? The 72 virgins? Because I read something interesting about that, said the president.
Oh, here we go. No, it's actually olives. Fuck off, don't care.
Silence, said Jones. You know nothing of this. It seems from what I read that black-eyed ones might not mean 72 virgin girls. They now think it's a mistranslation. And it really means what? Said Dean. Raisins. Isn't that something? Said the president. Fool, said Jones, and raised the Browning as if to whack him again. And another thing, said the president bravely. Enough, said Jones the bomb.
Chapter 55, 11:14 hours. No, I do not think America is an evil empire, said the French ambassador.
Oh good, he's still
The ambassador continued. I bet he fucking did. Our friend the cook has told us that America would dominate the world with her nasty fast food. He deplores the hamburger, and so do I. And yet I must ask you all, are you forced to eat this thing? Are you obliged to buy the dreaded Newman's Own balsamic vinegar instead of making your own vinaigrette? Are you obliged to support the ruthless profiteering of Ben & Jerry's ice cream? Now see, this is a point I would like to bring up. Obviously, you know, this is Boris. He's talking about, oh, the dreaded Newman's Own balsamic vinegar. Are you forced to eat the hamburger? Well, yeah, actually, because I've only got like £2 in my pocket. So yeah, I kind of am, Boris. It's either that or starve, isn't it, for most people? So fuck you.
Speaking as someone who does in fact make his own vinaigrette, what I would say... It's such a ridiculous argument. Oh, capitalism and corporations are only as big as they are because people chose to give them all their money. Well, that's only true up to a point. Once you pass a certain threshold of finance, those companies become unstoppable. They become megalithic. And the problem then becomes, well, what if people want to actually change their minds? Well, they're not allowed.
Yeah. How many fucking times do you think you hear in the poorer parts of this country say, oh, I don't know, shall we get a McDonald's or shall we go to Gordon Ramsay's new restaurant? Do you know what I mean? It's fucking bollocks.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
No, we'll stay in tonight and hand make the burgers.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Exactly.
also, again, like I have to come back to with almost every other argument he makes, the moral dimension is completely removed.
Stripped away from it.
That doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
Let's just say that there is a complicity. Of course there is.
There is, yeah, of course there is.
You know, this is literally just the, and yet you live in a society argument.
I didn't choose capitalism, but I do choose to stay alive, so
exactly.
I kind of have to interact with it.
Yeah,
from
these
time
are
to
not
time, you know?
leisurely questions of preference. They're very immediate questions of survival. Something that Boris has no understanding of whatsoever.
Of go to Normandy, go to Omaha, and gold and Juno and sword, and then go to see the receding vistas of white crosses on the huge green lawns which contain the remains of thousands upon thousands of the Americans who sacrificed themselves for the freedom of Europe. And there, you fools who despise and depreciate America, go there and tell me that we, the people of France, do not owe the Americans an eternal debt. Well, I'll be danged, said the president, breathing out. He snapped a salute. Alors... The Frenchman was about to make some other points.
Please continue.
It's lucky he kept that brief, isn't it? In terms of like the actual story of this and the timeline of the story, that speech is probably the lengthiest thing that has happened in the entire fucking book.
The lengthiest single act is waffling on. Again, we return to the argument of, well, we just have to go along. A bunch of different Americans at an entirely different point in history did something noble. Therefore, torture camps and everything have to just be okay on our watch. And the rank excessive of capitalism, which are literally killing everyone on the planet, have to just go on unresisted because that was a fight against fascism, against world domination by a deadly ideology, and you are now using it to justify propping up precisely the same thing.
Many had picked up their mobiles to express one point of view and were suddenly overcome with a sense of the frivolity of anti-Americanism.
It's not about anti-Americanism.
No.
Stop demanding that this conversation be dominated by questions of anti-Americanism.
I'm not anti-American, I'm anti-torture. I'm anti-imprisonment without fucking trial.
I'm anti-capitalist. None of those things are inherently American. Stop trying to racialise everything. You utter fucking corona gimp.
In the diners and lounges of America, there was shock at this sign of gratitude from an unexpected quarter. There was amazement. There were fits of piteous blubbing. Jones's eyes went to the door, whence he could hear Dean's retreating footsteps. This is fucking so stupid. Like, fucking True Allegiance was better than this.
Yeah, it was.
It was better than this. At least the ending of True Allegiance was just like, fuck it, just nuke them, bang.
Fuck everyone.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Fuck everyone into glass.
Like,
but
kind of
Joe,
amazing.
let's hold your horses there, buddy, because we haven't finished yet. There's still time.
That's true. Yes, there is.
There's still time for this to go completely wild. So let's, let's just see what happens.
Fair enough. Oh, sweet prophet, praise and honour to your name, and may 1,000 blessings be upon you, thought Haroon as he struggled with his fly. His gun had been left in the sink, and the door, marked gentlemen members only, was unlocked. Now the fly was open, and what in the name of Allah? He had forgotten about the prophylactic towel. His imam had given him a tip, you see, that he would need his genitals intact in order to enjoy the 72 heavenly benefits of martyrdom. Now he couldn't undo the beastly towel.
Did he actually say?
Yep, now he couldn't undo the beastly towel. Freddy, undo this beastly towel! He yanked and pulled on the towel, and now the O-ring seal of his urethra began to expand. He couldn't stop it. Shame was coming down the tracks like a derailed Cannonball Express. Okay, unfortunately he wasn't exploded at that point, but he did piss himself.
Sorry, I think we should have a little drink for him pissing himself. Just a little trickle.
Well, here's to you, Haroon, and your beastly towel. Chapter 56, 11:18 hours. It is lies, all lies, railed Jones. It is the Fox TV. It is propaganda and bullshit. But Jones could not stop the earth turning, and as dawn continued to break over America, and as the alarm clocks went off and the TVs went on, Americans voted in huge numbers to vindicate their right to bang up the towel-head nutters. In Iowa, Wanda Pickle and Jason Jr. voted solidly for the president, and so did Mom's new friend Howie, a realtor who she had met on the set of a daytime TV show.
How is that detail ever going to be relevant?
Well, I think sometime within the next 20 pages, Howie's going to turn up and save the day.
Yeah, with his realtor skills.
He'll pick the lock of the toilet and find Haroon
drowning in his own piss.
Now Jones could feel his majority slipping away. He was like one of those candidates who thinks he has won because they count the votes from the liberal urban areas first. Only as the votes start to come in from the shires, from the boneheaded conservative villages where they know right from wrong.
Now we're making a moral argument.
Yeah.
So if you vote Conservative,
that's right,
then you know right from wrong. So what defines the liberal urban areas is that they are inherently wrong in some way. I wonder what he could mean by that.
Oh, God. So I say in conclusion,
thank
perorated
God.
the Frenchman, to hate America is in a way to hate ourselves. It is a fact of human psychology that all our most vehement opinions, all our most passionate prejudices, are but the result of some internal argument, some unresolved tension in our own souls. The rage of those who despise America is the rage of Caliban, staring at his face in the glass. Messieurs, mesdames, God bless America! As Haroon finally disentangled himself from the towel, he was filled with that infantile ballistic joy that comes in the last second before the weapon is discharged. I am a missile, a sidewinder, a tank, he thought, as he aimed at the sign saying Shanks. I will tear their bodies into little pieces and cause them more pain than they will ever know. So he didn't piss himself. He didn't even piss himself.
He maybe pissed himself just a little bit.
God! High over the Atlantic warm Gulf winds...
God?
Yeah.
We've gone to God now. God, high over the Atlantic.
God. High over the Atlantic, warm Gulf winds were pushing the stealth bombers faster than they had ever flown before. Parliament Square was now a parade ground of crack troops. They scoped the griffins in their sights. They primed the stun grenades. They checked the rope ladders. Bless! And I tell you what, thought Roger Barlow as he cast around for other undertakings he could offer the Almighty. Tell you what, God old bean, I'll clear up the puddles on the bathroom floor.
Him and Haroon seem to have something fucking common, yeah.
America. Goodbye, Dean, my child, said Jones. He pressed the button marked yes on the Nokia.
Here it fucking comes!
Catch the motherfucking peanut. Connecting, said the machine. Somewhere in the ether, one gang of chirruping electrons was introduced to another gang. They snuffled round each other. They started to speak each other's language. They seriously clicked and began electronic intercourse.
Of course. Of course. Boris had to turn phones into fucking somehow,
I don't understand how phones work, and so like they had to just give this like analogy where it's like, okay Boris, imagine the phone is a cock. Oh! The corresponding mobile phone vibrated once. The explosion could be heard all over the palace and in the square outside. It wasn't a car backfiring, or a firework, or someone inadvertently putting a match into the intestinal vapours of a cow. It was an aggressive, percussive noise. You morons! Screamed Raymondo Charles, who was still in this book for some reason. Frigging idiotic cowboy shit for brains. The president hurled himself to the floor, not out of any particular cowardice.
Just more genuine.
Benedict spun around to see where the explosion had come from. So did Habib, and 1,600 eyes as the audience prepared to surrender to a full-blown Gadarene hysteria, kicking over the little gilt chairs and thinking, at last, of making a break for it. Dean jumped out of his skin, but only metaphorically. His skin remained attached to his body. He turned round and rushed back down the corridor to room W6. Pickle barely moved. Frig me dead, he thought.
With pleasure.
And it was Haroon, of course, who Jackson Pollocked the walls and ceiling of the gentleman members' conveniences with his blood and brains.
And piss.
Did he attain paradise? Beyond that final orgastic delivery of urine? Does Haroon now live in a dome decorated with pearls, aquamarine and rubies? A sunny pleasure dome as wide as the distance between Al-Jabiya, a suburb of Damascus, Damascus and the Yemeni capital of Sana'a. This carries on. And finally, is this menu brought to him by 72 black-eyed virgins, so decorous and submissive as to assuage all the sexual indignities of this earth? My friends, I have not the faintest idea. No narrator, whatever omniscience he may claim, can give you the answer to that one. But I have my suspicions. Haroon has left the building.
Good night, sweet pissy prince. Chapter 57, 11:19 hours. Behind the black-painted rail at the top of the hall, Silver Stick and Black Rod and the Earl Marshal exchanged meaningful glances, like an escape committee at Colditz. They knew that the authority of the terrorists had been momentarily dissipated. As soon as Habib heard the bomb, he whirled and stared at the door that led into the hall. He knew what had happened, and in spite of his religious training, the tears ran down his cheeks. And for a second he listened with brimming eyelashes to the pagan mutterings of the crowd, growing in strength like pigs who have found their way out of the sty. He heard them milling from their seats, knocking over the chairs, and he felt a sudden contempt. Oh, a sudden! It's just very sudden. In the midst of his suicide bombing, he suddenly discovered he didn't really like Westerns. He felt overcome by the hot hate of righteousness and waved his Schmidt. He's talking about his dick. Sit down, he shouted, or I shoot you. Sit down, everybody, or it will be the shooting time, yelled Benedict. People sat down again. Resignation descended. For crying out loud, said the Deputy Assistant Commissioner. It's our bloody country. It's our bloody city. It's our bloody parliament. And I am in charge here. But it's my fucking president whose life is at risk here, Stephen. And we have a plan. But it still isn't working. And where is the bloody man pickle anyway? The man pickle. He is a big bloody man pickle, that Jason Pickle, isn't he? My dear Dean, said Jones, without skipping a beat. My dear, dear Dean, I am glad you decided to come back. Perhaps you will come with us now and finish the job. The young Wolfranian stepped through the door. He stared at Jones the bomb. Somehow he seemed bigger, older, at least to Cameron's eyes. Jones was about to tell room W6 what to do, when the television said something that made Dean jump out of his skin. I want to appeal now to my son Dean, said a voice he had never heard before.
Oh no! It's not even the fucking foster dad, it's the fucking curb crawler.
We're about to finally meet him. He looked at the screen and saw a curious middle-aged man with a proud nose and curly hair sitting in a lilac tracksuit on a beige sofa. Who is that? Asked Cameron, coming up and standing next to him. Bogged if I know, said Dean.
Bogged if I know.
It was Sammy Katz. 5 months after the night of his conception, Katz had come across the same girl again, in the same godforsaken spot on the Bilston Road, but now she was pregnant. We do not need to know the details of the subsequent desultory relationship.
Hang on. There's something that we don't need to know the details of. Holy shit, in the final pages of this book, Boris Johnson has finally matured as an author. Oh my god.
We do not need to know the details of the subsequent desultory relationship. Brackets, the embarrassed letters to Dennis Faulkner, Faulkner's attempts to shrug him off, the pathetic presence every 5 years of low-denomination bills.
So we don't need to know the details, but
here they are.
Anyway, I take that all back.
I feel I let Yao down, Dean, he said.
Oh, fuck right off.
What was that you were just saying about his maturity? I appeal to Yao, Dean, he said again. Yeah, he does keep saying that, doesn't he? I still don't know why. He didn't care much what he said, since his overriding feeling was pleasure after all these years at appearing on TV. But Sammy Katz could not expect to last long at the epicentre of the biggest ever global media event, and after 35 seconds, the moaning man on the Wolverhampton settee was banished by the schedulers in favour of news from the TV stations across the planet. The peoples of the earth were beginning to change their collective mind. It might be the global consciousness of our species was being affected by considerations of right and wrong, but at the bottom of the screen was a big bi-coloured bar, rather like that used in televised rugby internationals to show which side has had the higher percentage of ball possession. For the first time, the right-hand blue side of the bar was bigger than the left left-hand red side of the
So,
bar.
I'm sorry, he's literally saying that it's, the collective right thing to do, the moral thing to do, is to keep people imprisoned and being tortured who have had no charge brought against them whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is the morality of the Prime Minister of our country.
Yeah.
I hate this.
By 51 to 49%, people appeared to be voting for America, even if it meant the retention of the prisoners in Cuba.
Well, that's a small price to pay, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but we pay it gladly.
Yeah.
Too bad, buddy. You lose, said the president. Shut up, said Jones the bomb. He stuffed his Browning into his trousers and started waving his Nokia under the president's nose. See this, he said, wielding it like a TV zapper. If I want, I kill us all. I don't want, said the president. You come with me, stinky pig, said Jones the bomb. Ear, said Dean, as they moved in the direction of Westminster Hall. Is your name Cameron? And you're Dean, right? Is he your boyfriend? Said Dean, pointing at Adam. Cameron chose not to answer this question and asked, that man on the TV, was he really your father? What was his name again? I think it was Katz. It was with a K, I think. Dean pondered the ethnic implications of this. They passed the small window that gave on to Parliament Square, whose mullions were now treacly with water. Chapter 58. In the hall, Benedict had once more subdued the crowd. Everyone collapses. And now she handed over to Jones. We're back, my friends. As announcements go, this one was less popular than Gary Glitter announcing his comeback to 1,000 skinheads at the Slough Apollo. Hey! This is for you, Gary. So let us show we are not afraid by continuing our debate. Up in the rafters, beneath the flèche, Pickle now prepared his shot. Same. He lined up the lead terrorist in his sights and began to sing his executioner's song.
God.
He'd missed in the yard, but there were extenuating circumstances there.
He was having his bollock bit at the time, yeah.
With that pisser Barry White. I mean, it's just ridiculous. This American soldier.
Yeah.
That damn pisser. That arsehole. This time he would do the business. The neck was presenting itself to the crosshairs. A stretch of stringy brown neck. There where the drug had to go in. It was a tough shot, but it was doable, and it had to be done now. We'll stuff this for a game of soldiers, thought Roger Barlow. He had been waiting to speak for ages, and it was just like the Commons. You stood up and walked to the end of the diving board. You girded your speedos and stared at the terrors below, and then someone else was called, and you sat back down again, and the adrenaline turned all manky and stale in your system.
Now that I've heard that, the look on his
Yeah.
face every time he speaks does make sense now.
There was only one thing to be said for his terror of making his speech, and that was that it obscured his terror of being shot. And if he spoke well, they might just knock that story on the head. Listen, the editors would say to the sadistic girl who was persecuting him. We can't go down Roger Barlow anymore. Did you hear his speech on America? Did you hear him speak up for the president?
Fuck's sake.
Bad luck, they'd say to the vicious, wheedling little Debbie Gujaratne. Barlow is in, they'd say. Barlow is cool. And Debbie would gnash and spike her rotten little story. Oh God, oh Gord, thought Roger Barlow. Why had he done it? Why had he put himself in this ludicrous position? And he thought back to the moment of failure. The woman with her shirt seemingly open to the waist, with her lip gloss, her black hair, her busy little fingers on his arm. Oh, Roger, she'd droned. Oh, please, you promised. And he'd touched her cheek. Oh, Struth. Had they been snapped? And reached for his wallet. Oh, Eulalie, Eulalie, he moaned. Unless he spoke up forcefully now, Eulalie was going to be his ruin. He rose to his feet and tried to catch the eye of Jones the bomb. And as he did so, tried to envisage the reaction of the Oedipal 4-year-old when the news of his folly broke over London like a thunderclap, and he was the butt of 1,000 jokes. Who is that man, mummy? You are not necessary. Goodbye. Mr. Chairman Terrorist, he said firmly. gently. Ahoy there! Gently, gently, said Pickle, the ace marksman, to himself, drawing a bead on that hectic pockmarked neck. The neck was big in his scope. He could see the grime around the white neck of the t-shirt. He could see the pulse. But it was no goddamn use if the sucker kept jigging, because the neck would just pass out of view and he would be focusing on stone again. My dear sir, said Jones the Bomb to Roger, thinking that whatever happened, this was the last speech. I fucking hope so. Standing in a clot of embarrassment next to Jones and the president were Cameron, Adam and Dean. Cameron had started to cry. Big tears. Again. Is there a woman in this book who hasn't just burst into frightful tears at some point? So beastly. If only I were a man. I could have nipped off to the toilets and pissed myself. Not because she was terrified, but because the whole thing seemed so mad and so interminable. True that!
That should be the quote on the front. Fucking interminable.
Dean felt at once overcome with sadness to see her tears and appalled at the thought that he might be responsible. He was about to touch her arm and comfort her when Habib approached him. It should have been you to die, not Haroun, said the Arab quietly, and Dean dropped his hand and stared out in misery once more at the audience, who stared in misery back. And then he saw her. Yes, it was. 5 rows back. He looked straight into her beseeching eyes.
Vanessa, remember that? Somehow I do. I wish I didn't, but I do.
Mr. Chairman Terrorist, my lords, honourable members, ladies and gentlemen, said Barlow, I really don't have much to add to what speakers today have already said. Then shut up, said Jones the Bomb, bending to reach for the Nokia in his jacket pouch. Bring it on, baby!
Please, fucking everyone die, please.
But on behalf of all the electorate of Cirencester, whom it is my privilege to represent, I believe I would be remiss if I... Get on with it, said Jones the Bomb, as he prepared to bring the operation to its predestined end. Damn, said Pickle. Did not say a few words on a subject which, in the ambulance in New Palace Yard, William Eric Kinloch Onyema had fully regained consciousness. His chest hurt like hell. His long brown fingers reached for something to help him upright, and wrapped themselves round some wires which were protruding from a box. Is evidently controversial, and which arouses strong opinions around the globe. Say something interesting, you silly man. Quiet, you awful man, yelled Jones the Bomb. He stood still and pressed the button to activate the automatic dialing system. Pickle had the vein in his sights. All right, you tosser, said Roger Barlow. I say to hell with you, and the rest of you chippy, pathetic, pretentious, evil, envious Islamic nutcases. I say vote for America. Sit down, screamed Jones the Bomb. Sit down and shut up. And just as Pickle pulled the trigger, Jones jerked the president forward 1.5 feet and placed the crown of the presidential head in the path of the thiopentene sodium dart as it was dispatched with a muzzle velocity of 3,100 feet per second. Ow, said the president. What the fuck?
Chapter 59, 11:25 hours. You fools, said Jones. The Yanks were attacking. He pushed again at the mobile, and the number flashed on the screen. Dialing, said the mobile. It took only a second for the stuff to begin to work on the president. He toppled forward. The dart was sticking out of the top of his head. It looked terrible on TV.
Just instantly killed by a fucking dart to the brain.
And as the president went down, he dragged Jones with him. The mobile spilled out of his hand. Dialing, said the screen as the mobile spun across the flags. Pickle knew what he had to do, with what the citations would call a characteristic disregard for his own safety. He flung his 17 stone off the little wooden platform beneath the flèche and abseiled from the ceiling.
I thought he was going to just jump
Dead
straight
himself,
on
like,
top
yeah.
of Jones and just explode them all.
He aimed at the form of Jones, and in order to hit him, he threw himself forward. He went too far and too fast.
Well, maybe I was right.
Yeah, maybe. Engaged, said the mobile. Pickle landed awkwardly at 34 miles an hour on the 5th step, 12 away from Jones the Bomb. Ox-like though it was in dimension and construction, his left tibia was cleanly snapped by the violence of his arrival. Jones was now crawling towards the mobile and thinking what an idiot he had been. He had dialed himself. He panted as he tried to lug the inert mass of the president across the old straighted shale. All he had to do was dial Dean or Habib, and it may not be an indication of some ultimate failure of his character that he did not think to activate by hand the detonator on his own jacket. "Engaged," said the mobile. "Retry?" As Jones crawled towards the mobile, the broken-limbed Pickle crawled up the stem. The broken-limbed Pickle crawled up the steps towards Jones. His gun was gone, but he had his knife, and he had the courage of a wounded lion as it charges down the rifle of some mock-brave white hunter. Hardly bothering to look, Jones turned his Browning round and shot Pickle in the chest. Well, that's that then. The end. The 9mm bullet ripped through the trapezius of his right breast, scraped a rib, and lodged in his vast sternocleidomastoid withers.
Great.
The damage was very severe, and still that great heart beat on.
To the tune of Yankee Doodle.
Army knife to the fore, he slithered up the stairs to save his head of state and commander-in-chief. In his shame and rage, Adam made forward to help the injured man, but Cameron held him back.
Great time to suddenly spring to action. No, wait. Let's play that.
5 steps to go, reckoned Pickle, and know how he feels. Now in tremendous pain from both his chest and his leg.
And his bollocks.
Yeah. 3 more steps and he would expunge any guilty memory of the incinerated car in Baghdad. No, 2 more steps and he would wash away the stain that had been left on his name by that pisser Barry White. If he had managed 1 more step, he would have been upon Jones the Bomb and the President as they advanced in a crumpled push-me-pull-you across the floor. "Engaged," said the mobile. "Retry." But Jones did not wait for Pickle's arms to come within swinging distance. He aimed the Browning at Pickle's head and shot at him again. And that might have been the end of Jason Pickle. By the laws of ballistics, the bullet should have entered his brain and killed him instantly. And later the news would have been brought to his wife, at that moment running the early morning bath for another man. Except that Jones's trigger finger was just closing when his gun arm was kicked sharply at the elbow by Roger Barlow.
I love the fact that Indira Nath, or whatever her name is, just vanished off.
Yeah, she
away.
doesn't do anything heroic, she just fucked off.
Leave it to the men.
Yeah, except that Jones's trigger finger was just closing when his gun arm was kicked sharply at the elbow by Roger Barlow, who felt that his speech had not been exactly coherent and that now was the time for action, not words. "You idiot MP," said Jones. And Jones, who would have blown Roger away with the bullet meant for Pickle, only his gun now jammed. Oh, that's tragic.
What happened to Benedict?
Ain't it?
She got a gun? What's happening? Fingers crossed she's affected her escape and she'll get away scot-free.
"Yo, Roger," sang out his beautiful research assistant, and Adam saw her exultant eyes and wished they had been turned on him. But Jones the Bomb was not finished yet. By dragging and shoving the recumbent president, whose anaesthetic dart waggled absurdly from the top of his skull, he had at last extended his fingers to within 6 inches of the master Nokia. At which point Dean stepped forward and kicked it aside. "No!" shrieked Jones the Bomb, and Habib ran after it, directing a hideous Arab imprecation at the wolf fruit. For fuck's sake. Why does he have to talk such bollocks all the time?
I'm kind of glad you didn't finish it. It wasn't going anywhere I was liking.
Directing a hideous Arab imprecation at the Wolfrunian recruit. Across Westminster Hall, the audience was now screaming and shouting instructions, and rising from their places in fear. Adam was saying how much he wished he had a gun, but Cameron was not listening to Adam. She was looking at the back of the head of Jones the Bomb as he crouched over the president, spitting and waving his Browning. She knew what she wanted to do. Her eyes went to the group of heraldic figures behind the black railing. Before she could ask to borrow it, the necessary object was thrust without a word into her hand. She's gonna stab him in the fucking skull with a halberd or something.
She's gonna brain him with the mace.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's gonna be the mace.
"Come on, you idle bastard," shrieked Jones at the comatose form of the president. Now he would shoot him. No, he had better shoot himself. Or should he shoot Dean? He was sitting there, crouched over and grizzling with irritation, when Cameron came up behind him. And before she could act, she found that Roger had materialised beside her and taken the ancient artefact with a wink.
It's alright, darling. Leave this to a chap.
Who handed handed it to her. What is happening? This fucking pass the parcel of a fucking mace or whatever. What is happening?
And because he was her boss, she naturally deferred to him. Then Roger drew back his arm with a wristy motion he had first learned as a child when thwacking the tops of the thistles in the meadow, and hit him very hard on the base of the skull. Jones the bomb said not a word, and subsided prone over the president's motionless shins. Black Rod smiled to see his eponym put to such good use. It was there to protect the House of Commons, and it had done its job. But now Habib found the phone. Oh, come on!
Yes, mate.
And handed it to Benedict.
Yes!
Wait, she said, or I will detonate the dirty bomb.
That one's already been detonated.
There is another bomb in the ambulance, my friends, and this time it is the big one. She called up the menu screen and found what she wanted and pressed. Dialing, said the screen of the master mobile.
I'm gonna have to go all the way back. It's a day of correct predictions. You predicted Eric Onyema would save the day.
I did.
He's about to do just that.
I think he might.
He reached for the wires.
Yes, and he's
gonna
pull them out,
like yank
and
on
as
them.
she dials,
Yeah.
he yanks them and it disconnects, yeah.
Oh my god.
In the ambulance in New Palace Yard, Eric Onyema, the parking warden, was feeling woozy again, and his bloodied hand pulled harder on the wires that were linked to the funny little box on the floor of the ambulance. Connecting, said the mobile. Oof, said Eric, and sat up on the gurney, and out of the box popped first a red wire and then a green one. Death to America, cried Benedict. Death to imperialism. I die for Palestine and to avenge injustice. Connection failure, said the mobile. And then the Klieg lights went put, and the hall was plunged into comparative darkness.
Oh, for God's sake.
And the upper air of the chamber was full of a blizzard of glass. Through every window in the building crashed the special forces of Britain and America, and they executed their task of saving life with pent-up rage and professionalism.
That's an odd way of saying that. I mean, I don't dispute it, but it's an odd way of saying it.
Of the brotherhood of the two mosques, all the four who were still conscious and willing, Benedict, Habib and the two Arabs, were arrested unharmed. The only casualties were Barry White and Chester de Peveril, who were running to escape at the north end when they contrived to cushion the fall of the left arm and right breast of Philippa of Hainaut, and now fell victim to a stun grenade. These objects, as a result, were undamaged and able to be replaced with no obvious ill effects, which was more than could be said for Chester and Barry, who sustained a range of contusions, none of them very severe. In less than 30 seconds, about 200 officers had surrounded Dean, Cameron and the odd tableau of Jones and the President. But as the squads of black catsuits with guns moved among the crowd, Dean spotted her again, and this time, shyly, she waved. It was Lucy Goodbody, aka Vanessa, she who had infiltrated Wright Price in Wolverhampton, and who had been sent by the Guardian to cover what they imagined would be a torpid speech about the special relationship. As Dean looked, he realised she wasn't the Lucy Goodbody of his tormented imagination. She was just a tired and frightened reporter with a spot on her forehead, visible even at this distance. And it wasn't her fault, thought Dean, that she had fancied his friend more than him. Yow right, Vanessa, he waved, and began to grow up. No one took much notice of Dean and Cameron as they now huddled together on the stairs. He had his arm around her and noticed that she smelled lovely. She was crying and crying and crying from shock and exhaustion. Oi, said Dean, don't cry. Your man, what's his name? Adam. He really didn't know anything about it. We told him a load of crap, I promise you. Really? She stopped and snivelled. Yeah, you'll be fine, love. How is this real? She turned to him, and because her lips were so trembling and vulnerable, he kissed them. To his astonishment, they opened a little, and for a second she returned his kiss, and he could taste the inside of her mouth and remembered why people talked about kisses being sweet. He knew she didn't mean anything by it. He knew she was just kissing for the joy of being alive, and she knew she would never do it again, but for Dean it was a possession forever, and the joyous for God's sake. And the joyous phenylethylamines coursed in his veins. Well, thought Roger Barlow as he sat back down again, stone me. He was a bit stunned by his own recklessness, but one thing was for sure, they'd never bother with the ukulele business now. Ukulele, what a prat he'd been. 20,000 of his own hard-earned pre-tax pounds sunk without trace in a lingerie shop called Eulalie, which, at least according to the Daily Mirror's pestilential Debbie Gujarante, was a front for a brothel. MP runs knocking shop was the headline he was dreading. But if tomorrow's front pages were about his drivelling escapades with Eulalie, he would eat his hat. It was, no doubt about it, a good day to bury bad news. Deep in their respective unconsciousnesses, Jones and the President lay on the stone dais, curled like twins awaiting their rebirth into a weird and unfair world. Outside, the rain had stopped. In that sudden summery way, the heat was on the street again, and the smell of dust and warmed-up dog shit rose up from the paving stones. The flags of Britain and America fluttered in the sun. Up above London, the clouds were no longer threatening, but high and white, fleecy and friendly. As he was passed carefully out of the ambulance, Eric Onyema admired them. "Wait," he said to his stretcher-bearers as he was carried round from the front of the ambulance. He printed off a ticket from the Sanderson machine and stuck it under the wiper. "Tee-hee-hee," said Eric Onyema, and fainted again from loss of blood.
A sleep from which he would never wake.
And later that day, Roger cycled home, having dealt with Mrs. Betts, the respite centre, and many other matters.
And they all lived happily ever after.
He received something approaching a hero's welcome. "You were on TV," said the 4-year-old, and climbed on his knee with the others, the envied kiss to share.
What other children are on his knee?
"You were on TV," said the 4-year-old, and climbed his knee with the others, the envied kiss to share. And they all daubed him with tomato ketchup so he could be like the other people they'd seen on TV.
That is not the final line! What? That's it! That's it! That's it! After all that!
Yeah, it's like he didn't even bring it to a close, he just stopped writing it, which I'm fine with, frankly.
I have to get to the bottom of this.
Okay, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
That was the final line. What the fuck was that?
That, hands down, is the worst book I have ever read. No fucking question. Like, True Allegiance was marginally better than that.
But Joe, you're forgetting the simple truth of what has just happened.
I am not.
Ah, Mr. Simpson, you're forgetting the first two noble truths of the Buddha. I am not.
You're missing the broader point. We just fucking finished it.
Oh, I'm missing the broader point.
Yes.
Yes. Whiskey. 72 virgins.
Bye-bye, Boris. Don't come back.
No, die of
Jesus
COVID-19.
Christ.
So,
72 virgins, done and done.
And that's that.
Oh, we finally did it. It's finally fucking gone. How amazing a feeling is that, though?
This is one of the best feelings I've ever had. People say having a child is like the most amazing feeling you could ever have.
Fuck that shit.
Fuck that shit, I'm going to Vegas.
So we're free.
Oh my god, yeah, no, I do. Oh my god, we can. Right,
free.
so now we can choose to read anything we like.
Yeah.
We can choose
We
whatever we want to
whatever
read.
we like. We could go outside. Well, we can't. Go
No, we
outside,
can't.
but we could, we can stay indoors. We can do whatever we like. We can do nothing.
We could just watch films
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, we could do something that we actually enjoy.
Yeah. Oh.
Jesus Christ! I mean,
I mean, that's basically all I've got to express my feelings on that.
yeah. I mean, at this point, I think it's fair to say we are exhausted. The book has been quite a trek, and Jesus, was it absolutely not worth getting to the end. I don't know what to say, honestly. It's done. It's finished. I'm very glad that it's gone. What a fucking crazy book.
It's sort of like the end of a war, in that, like, I'm glad it's over, but I wish it had never happened in the first place.
And I just don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
One thing I suppose is just to say, I hope that us having gone through this, reading this book, and you having watched through these videos, if you have, thank you very much. I hope that it's given you just some insight, some understanding of this man and his uniquely broken mind. Like, at this point, all I can really say is, what the fuck was that? I don't know, there's no grand point to be made other than, I guess, the realization of just how ungraspable this man is. I mean, what an astonishing view into it. What a bizarre thing to have created.
Yeah.
I mean, is he proud of that? Is he happy with how that turned out?
Yeah, I think the most important thing I can say right now really is anyone who has actually sat through all 357 episodes of this series, thank you very much. Like, honestly, thank you for putting up with this shit. I really have nothing further to say about Boris or his shitty little book.
Yeah, it's just bizarre, spiteful, nasty, pathetic,
perverse,
and that's really all there is to say about it. I think the most important thing to say is thank you for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. We appreciate all of it immensely. It's incredibly moving. Every comment,
it is,
every
it genuinely
like,
is,
every watch, everything, it all means a lot to us. So thank you so much, if you have, for sticking with us through this lengthy jaunt through the twisted mindscape of an utter cunt. Apologies for that, but I guess if you're watching these videos, that's kind of what you signed up for. One thing I would ask you to do, upon watching this through a second time...
That's ambitious.
Sure. Let's say you're watching this for a second time, and you know the ending. As you're going through, just count out all of the details that go nowhere, all of the characters, all of the plot, everything, all of the extraneous details that serve no purpose.
Can't
that
believe
go
how we
nowhere.
never turned up.
Yeah. And then I want you to imagine, from the length of the videos, how much shit we cut out and how doubly pointless that fucking shit was. I mean, I suppose the only thing left to say for one final time is... Come on, Joe, we can do this.
Fuck you, Al!
Thank you for watching. If you've watched all the way through these videos, thank you so much.
Yeah, you are a masochist extraordinaire.
You are the true hero of this story.
Yes.
If you did like it, please like the video. If you want to leave us a comment, if you've got any questions, if you've got any suggestions for books that you think we should read. This book came from somebody suggesting it. We had no idea that this existed. The next book we're going to be reading came from a commenter. Thank you very much for that. We had no idea it existed.
Thanks for that.
We do appreciate all the comments. If you've got any constructive criticism
or non-constructive criticism,
fine.
Exactly. Some of that is actually some of the best.
Incredibly funny. We enjoy it very much. Yeah, if you're sitting here thinking we're a pair of wankers, please
call
leave,
us,
please leave a comment.
Yeah,
they make us laugh every time. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Twitch. We'll do it live. So if you haven't, please subscribe.
Yes.
We've got plenty more of this shit coming, so if you like it, there's
Yeah,
tons of it. We're working on audio podcast version of these. If that's more your thing, stay tuned for that. That's coming. That is it for Boris Johnson's 72 Virgins. Thank fucking Christ. The worst book I've ever read.
Absolutely no question. We've been blind drunk, and this has been a complete fucking waste of everybody's time. So what should we do next? I'm thinking just something enjoyable, something maybe light, something fun, you know.
Go.
Something.
We can do whatever we like.
So what are we saying?
We're gonna read this.
Now the working classes are obsolete. They are surplus to society's needs. So let them all kill each other. That's the word, don't you know? From the guys that's running the show. Let's be perfectly clear, boys and girls. Oh, cunts are still running the world. Cunts are still running the world. Oh yeah.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain gang.